All right, all you devils out there, happy Thursday the 29th here, just 9:30 for me in Austin. So a little bit of a reshuffling of our usual format here. So of course, normally I would do these on Monday, but I was out of town. Oh, and then kind of had a lot on my plate as I got back. So we've just kind of reshuffled the schedule just for this week. We'll return to normal next week. As usual, we've got members posting up their content here, charts that they're tracking or may feel as though they're opportunities. So these potentially are setups that could be actionable. And of course, always, as I've mentioned many times, but for any that are new to this or have not seen these before, the idea here is we ask our members to post charts that they're tracking, they're interested in, possibly trades that are setting up. So to a large degree, much of this can be, maybe a setup that you hadn't seen. I mean, there's so many assets to trade, we can't cover them all. So these are potentially contenders for action that could be available to you based on what we cover here. And then, of course, it's always part of the intention here, is, as you've heard me say many times, we think if you really want to learn something, the best way to do it is to teach it to someone. And that's in many ways what we're trying to do here. We're asking the members to teach it back to us. So that's additionally part of it. And hopefully I might add a little value, or maybe a nugget gained from my experience, 30 years in the market, that could be helpful. Maybe that's an additional reason to watch. And of course, always you get exposure to the process here and what we do at TradeDevils University. Okay, all of that said, let's dig right in. So this is the Ethereum count from James M. Right, he's a very, very, very well-known member amongst the members. Right, so he's what is he now? Is he a brown? Yeah, he's a brown belt now. Right, I almost forgot. So a very skilled Elliottian, and really he's made channels, a cornerstone of his technical approach, which you'll see reflected here, is additionally some speed fans that he's got working here. So here, this is his count of Ethereum on Coinbase. So we're back to the absolute. Well, I don't know if there's any earlier history. There may well be. I don't know that it matters. I think we most Elliotticians would agree that this initial push up here is a 1. Probably this is open to interpretation. I've seen some work this as a WXY. I think as we see here, we do not get a new low here or even a double bottom. So it's not unreasonable to work this as a 1-2, 1-2, and then yet again per his count a 1-2. Now I have this slightly differently, which is not that one's right, one's wrong. I mean, until we see resolution as to where this is going, it's always. It's not that you're making an educated guess. You're using the technical skills that you have to identify an edge in the market. That's all we can ever hope for, is this just the slightest of edge that would warrant putting money at risk for the potential return. So, well, let's take a look here. So per his count, we're going 1. So that would be an ABC. Oh shit, it doesn't matter, right? It could be a WXY, but let's just keep it simple. Now, of course, one possibility, which is actually how I have it, is that we've gone into a 3, and then we're working on the correction over here. But this is an interesting alternative to consider. So again, it would be 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, and this would all be completing just the 1-2 at the larger degree. Interesting. I mean, a few things to note here. Now, you must note that we are in log scale, right? This would look quite differently if we were not in log scale. Well, if we take the 1 and the 2, we're just kind of measuring with our alternate. It's interesting that we tag the 261 here at the absolute pivot. Now, per his count, that would be at the expanded B high. Of course, you could see how this could be interpreted as a candidate, right, for the 3rd, and we're working on the 4th now. But let's stick with James' interpretation of it, right? I mean, one thing I know from James' work, this will be valid. So if we look here on the assumption here that we've got 1-2, and per his interpretation, this isn't enough. So the 3rd, his expectation here, if this is 1 and this is 2, that we're going into the 3 of the 3, which would be that's your monster wave right there. Now, are we there? Well, I mean, okay, let's just, for the sake of this analysis, let's consider it. I'm wrestling with that, but let's consider it. Okay, so if this is a 1, we're working on the 2. Now, per his count, we've got the 2 in. So if this is an A, so we're working on a 3, 3, 5. And I know you can't see it, but that's the structure he's implied here, and we'll look at it as we dig in. So 1, 2. This is the 1. This is the 2. We're going gangster here, right? We're going to go much, much, much higher. So this is about as bullish a count as I've seen on Ethereum. Interesting, James. Okay, so let's dig into it now. So I'm out here on the daily. Oh, let's see if there's anything else here that's worthwhile. Right? Volume profile is always a little funky when you're in log scale, but at least we can certainly get our value range here, which is pretty much the entire first wave. All right, now, so James sent me an 8 hour, so let's dig in there and see based on how he's viewing it here. So again, the premise would be here, oh, geez, are you hot? So we went 3, 3, and now we've gone, oh, can I get it here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, oh, shit, get off of there. Here we go. All right, so it's the 5 here that I think raises the biggest question mark in your mind. Could be, well, of course, could be. We can get the ABC here off of this. Clearly a triangle here. So you'd be working a 1, 2. Shit, do we need? I guess we're gonna have to get 5 into that. So we'd be working 5 triangle into the B and then down for this just a free fall. But impulsive, pause in the trend, impulsive, right? So the structure here now, can we go 1, 2 here and then expect to go 3, 4, 5 to come out of here? Well, at this degree, if this is 1, 2, well, this isn't going to be the 3 that comes. This would be the 1 of the 3. So if you think about that context, if this is 1 and the 2, well, this, right, just using, you know, I can just kind of eyeball here what would be a typical impulse coming off here. Now, you know, maybe presumptive to assume it would be typical, but we might as well start there. So if this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, that's not going to be the 3, right? That'll be the 1 of the 3, and so the implication is much, much, much higher prices. I mean, here's 20K, right? Here's 10K. It's a very bullish count. Okay, so let's return to this and let's dig into the correction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, right? It's valid. Is it the right look? Well, that would be, again, the point of hesitation. Do we really have the right look there? Now, coming off of this, so the assumption being this is the C of the 5 of the C of the 2. I know it sounds silly when you say it. So let's go. So he's giving me an 8 hour. Let's go to a 2 here so we can see this a little bit better and see if I think we have an opportunity setting up here. So we'd have to work a 1, 2 here. Now these are close, but this is a higher low. So then yet again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I agree with that count. I have it the same way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we complete yet again another 1 here. Oh shit, what is that? Okay, so we get a 1 here. And now we get a clear 5, a choppy B wave here as you, let's see, let me get in there. This makes sense here. So a choppy B wave, but it works. So you'd have to go A here, and then we're going to go A, B, and then you got just the waterfall down for the C, and then you set up here for the C of the B. So you're going to go A, oh Jesus Christ. So we're going to go A, B up here through via the A, B, C, and then we're going to come down in a 5, right? Now the 5, it's interesting. Where is it? The broader interpretation at the top is very similar to what he's done up here. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coming out of that looks very reminiscent. Oh shit! Well, you get my drift. It looks very reminiscent of this 1, 2 that came out of here. So maybe some common price action, but I think we can make this work. There's an impulse buried in here, then an ABC into the 4, waterfall 5. You can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's there. So that's very, very, very nice looking motive wave that we get down here for an impulse. A, funky B, and then yet again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into the 3, working on the 4. I'd go down a little bit tighter in there, see how that looks. Low A, B, C looks about as good as you're going to get out of that, right? It's a little bit of a chop monster here. So the idea would be, all right, if we just take it, because he posted this, I think, yesterday, 2, 3, 4, 5 coming down here for a deeper 2. Again, I'm just assuming more typical wave relationships. So let's measure it out. Oh, there's my ninja firing. Okay, so 1, 2. Now, again, I'm doing this in log scale here. I'd probably look at it both ways because now I'm looking at a range from 1680 to, well, what are we down here, 1200. So really, when you zoom in like this, I don't think we need the log scale because we're reducing the range that we're looking at. So when I condense here, 1791 to a low of 12, right? So we've got a $500 range, so we don't need to be in log scale here. So now we can see this a little bit better. I would differ a little bit here myself in my own interpretation of it. This is something like this. Right? I mean, this is where Elliott requires shit. Hang on. That requires some interpretation. It's what you see. This could be interpreted a couple of different ways. But let's continue with this 1, 2, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, so I mean, I think we probably all agree that this is likely a 4. This whole area is a series of 4s as we're going sideways. Now we're not progressing the trend. We don't have the ramp to imply a trend change. So we just have consolidation here, and the implication per this count would be that we've got to go down for the 3, 4, 5, and then maybe down here at around 1,000. Well, if we again just use our more typical ranges here, we'd be down in the approximately in the $1,000 range here for the potential for this to come down, finish the 3 into our 4, and then come down for the 5. And then could we potentially set up with a higher low to get something started here? Well, that's a lot of assumptive. You know, it's easy to draw it. It's another thing to track the market while it's doing it. Right now, this looks like we've got to resolve lower, right, to complete this count as interpreted. I would agree with that. It strikes me that this does not look like any sort of a finishing pattern. We certainly have nothing impulsive coming out here, or even something we could try and squunch into any sort of emotive wave. It all looks corrective. So the implication here is lower prices. Now, is this an opportunity to short here? Well, that's not a great looking entry location for a short. Now I've just said the implication is for lower prices here, but that's where it's ultimately headed. And then the more... Let's use the word conservative approach to entry here. This is always very high risk to enter as we're approaching prior significant lows. Of course, we can look over to the left and we can see some obvious potential, right? It's always just potential. That's some potential support here. Now they've been breached, right? Now that's all wick. We come back and testing again. So you can understand the potential here for this to perhaps turn around here. And again, the market is starting somewhat soft today. We've got risk assets again coming down. So as the broader markets are coming down, the dollar, we'll look at that in a minute. ABC, you're looking to finish down here. Well, so do you want to short it down here? Well, you're probably a little bit late on the short. Unless you're just ultra aggressive and you're willing to take the risk here, because as you approach these lows, all these pivots, you've heard me say this 1,000 times. The risk is that it's just a sweep of the lows, and then you get blasted here. So I think, if for nothing else, it would just be a very stressful location to be entering, right? You've heard me say this before, right? You're in here, and now you're so hypersensitive to the potential that you've been duped into taking the short because of the liquidity grab here. That grab, again, right? This is all hypothetical. This could be a liquidity grab here, and then we rock it up. So I think that's the reason not to, as we're into this consolidation. Now, if we do get the third, it might be worthwhile to consider, if we come back to retest here, what was once the support now becomes the resistance. If we were to come back and retrace, ideally, you get the market here. You might, if you're getting started on the 5, you can get into the 1, 2, so you have a small amount of risk, and you can get into that last motive on the way down, right? Impulse or diag wouldn't matter. You're just trying to get into the motive here. And then again, this is up to the individual, but my suggestion would be not to try and pick the turn. Wait, let's get a motive off the low and get your little correction, and then get into the 3. Maybe you get into something started there. Note the channeling, which is really his geometry cornerstone here. He's really made this an integral part here, and you can see how nicely this lines up within this channel. So are we going to come down here and breach the edge of it? Well, here's the 2618. So if we think 3, something like this for a 4, I'd have to bring you down a bit. There we go. So something like that, right in this range. So this looks to me like a more reasonable place to be entering the market if you're looking to get on the short side. Now, additionally here, you'll note here the value area range. So if we were to come here, let's use an arrow. So if we were to come back here to the edge of value here, value being determined by where's the bulk of the trading within this visible range here, we're coming into the value range. If we come back to the edge of that, boy, now there's a different story, right? So market's going up, you're catching the retrace. I mean, you could use something like this here as a stop. So if we're going to start to accelerate and take out these prior highs, well, then you might be rethinking where you are in this count. So of course there's going to be there's no risk-free trading. So you've got to be comfortable with that risk if you're going to take the retrace here from below on the assumption that it does go below. Okay, we come back. What was support becomes resistance potentially. Then you're working on the 5 and then looking for the 5 to be the end of this corrective phase and look for the 1, 2, right? So there you go. I think that's certainly, I mean, I'm going to assume most that are trading crypto have got a close eye on the majors, and this would certainly be one I'm sure many people are tracking. So this is an alternate view. I will give you my view on it. I think this is an alternate. Again, it's never my idea in offering an alternate account to apply that mine is right, the other is wrong. That's never my thinking. It's just there's much open to interpretation in Elliott, right? That's what people don't like about it. So you can interpret this both ways, right? So which one's right? Well, I mean, this is equally bullish, but the implication is that while we would agree that this is a 1, this is a 2, that we can go 1, 2, and that we can complete the 3 here via the impulse. Now, the subdivision is all there. And just looking at the swing structure, you could make, I think, just as valid a case that we've got the 1, 2, 3 here. And now this becomes, if we look at it this way, into a 1, this as the 2, and you look at, we're hitting the 2, 6, 1, 8 for the 3 here relative to that 1, 2, that's to the tick. Right? Things that don't happen randomly, right? Or this would not be, well, let you draw your own conclusion as to whether that's random. So we'd have 1, 2, 3. We're working on the 4. Now, one thought is the 4 is in here, right? We've come between the 38 and the 50. I mean, you could make a case here, and then per his count, one possibility here is that with the C being in of the 4, that we're into the 1, 2 before we go 3, 4, 5 here. So potentially seeking that 5 up here. Now, this is an algo target, and we're not deep enough here to where we would be looking for this to be an algorithmic play here because we're not deep enough. But it is worth noting here on this alternate account here, geez, I'm going to spend a lot of time on this one, that per this swing, this retrace, we're in between the 50 and the golden zone, and you can see that target is right down here at the 50 of this degree. So there's a confluence point down here. Oh, you probably have... a little cluster, you'd probably have a high volume node right here as the market stalled right there. So this would be an area where I would be, should we come down here looking to add. Now I bought here, right, on the first retrace into that golden zone. Not a huge amount, but I did start buying right here on the premise that this could go. Now, of course, one of the other thoughts is if this is a 5, which we can certainly validate that the subdivision is there. If this is a 5, well, this could be an ABC of an X wave before we go W, X, Y, and we go deeper. So we got to consider that as a possibility. But we're not going to know until we see what comes off of here, if we get an impulse and how far it goes, if we do, if, heavy emphasis on if. And of course, the other possibility, as we see here, if this sell side algo is going to win the day, we bring it down here for the possible tag of the 50 and that target here as we approach that for the implication that we'd come from here after that. Now we know we'd have an algo we'd be riding behind. So just another interpretation, two different things, both suggesting here that the opportunity is near, let's say it that way. So if you're more bearish on the market and you think we have another leg down, this is a very reasonable count. If you think the count is, we're just waiting for this at this lower time frame to complete down here, either way, the implication is a little bit lower, and then we'll be looking for signs of strength. So it's not ripe yet, right? Well, I wish it were, but if this looks like we've got one more down here, I'd be alerting as this comes down here to be aware for any potential signs of a reversal. All right, now that's a little bit of hopium, right? A little bit of hopium as everything's coming down yet again today, and the world seems to be struggling with a whole lot of issues. Let's not assume too much here. Let's let the market show it to us. So there you go. All right, well that's probably more than I should have done on Ethereum, but it's it's one of the majors here, and there's interesting alternates to consider. Okay, with that, I'm gonna wrap that one here. I'm gonna move on to ETH and T. I'm gonna do these just one at a time. So back to you in a second. Okay, next up I've got ETH and T, a resident purple belt, giving us a nice looking chart here for Alta Equipment Group. I'm not familiar with them at all. Fortunately, at Technicians, we don't really need to be. Do we have a potential setup here? Well, we've got a pretty darn good looking one. Oh, let me kill. Let's run that down there. Okay, so we've got what is a nice work, Ethan. So we get a leading diag here. 1A, expand the B into the 2, 3, 4, 5. That's some tricky Elliott footwork down there. Very well done. Note here the 3 gets the 1618, 175. So he's spent some time here. 1, 2 down to the 50. 1, 2, 618, 786. So all right. I mean, it's like if you were looking at the Elliott playbook. Oh, well, as long as I can get a 5 here, 618, 786. Great location for a possible 2. Oh, do I get? Oh, here we come. We get 1272, 2618, depending on what you're drawing from. It's probably 1272 from that 1-2 and 2618 from this 1-2. So you're at technically significant levels here per how algos would use that. 3 WXY into the 4 to the 382, right? Where's the highest probability for a 4 between 23 and 382, and then we get up a little screamer here. Oh, that's a little tricky here, but it doesn't really matter here. That 3, 4, 5 here, I don't think anyone would bicker with the idea that we've completed an impulse here, and then we start on the correction. ABC into a W, ABC into an X, and then we all get so caught up on the trying to get every little pivot. I think the broader structure here is really what we have to lean on, particularly when out here on a daily. So I think whether you're going, I don't think you'd be turning that into a 5. ABC, ABC. Oh, shit, how are you going to do that? AB. No, I think you do it here. ABC. Looks like you've got a 5 to finish the C. And so you sit here in a golden corner pocket. Now, it's very reasonable to suggest here that you don't need the Elliott here. I've got a swing that's impulsive, whether you're counting it as an Elliott impulse or not. It's certainly a series of higher highs and higher lows. So I have a trend, I have a correction. So I get a swing, I get an internal correction that happens to retrace exactly to the golden zone. What a shock, right? Now, do you think perhaps some influence from the pivots here, the triple top, the consolidation, then the launch point all the way back happens to be golden zone? I'll let you determine whether you think that's coincidental. I would remind you that there are exactly 0 coincidences in the market. So 1, 2 into a golden zone. So we've got a golden corner here, right? So what does that mean? As long as, now I want to remind you, I make a point of this. As long as that pivot holds, right, and it's not broken on this retrace here, we have an 80% probability of getting to that median line. So we have the potential, if this comes down a little further, to have a golden corner within a golden corner. All right, so if you see, I'm assuming you guys track what I'm saying here. So if we were to get that pivot there, now you've got a pretty nice looking potential confluence point there. Well, you might be curious to see how that looked relative to common swing relationships here. Well, you'd become, depending on where you hit it, right? If you hit it here at this intersection, you'd be in the second most common for a wave 3, 12738. Nothing says we have to stop here. We might pause and then continue to work our way to that 1618. Well, if we did, right, let's think about it here. So this, again, let's just put them where most probable locations, not that that's ultimately guarantee as to where they're going to land, but let's consider something like that. Oh, right, there's nothing that says we couldn't go higher, because as you see here, so actually now that I look at it, this if we're going to go 3, 4, 5, likely this is going to go higher, because this would likely not be, if we were to complete up here, this is likely not the 3, that would be the 1 of the 3, and then you'd go for the 3 of the 3. So all the ingredients here for a pretty substantial move. Oh, I'd want to know a little bit more. I might do a little digging on what's behind them and how realistic is that given the current backdrop as risk is getting repriced. Is this legit? Well, it's technically about as good as they get. Now you can see here he's already got entry points here. So you've got a full trading plan here. Entry, the first entry being at the 50. You can DCA down to the 618. Oh, you might 707, 786 would be plenty of room. You don't need to give it much more than that. And I say that because if this starts coming lower and we start to break some of this, I don't want to stick around to say, oh, well, let's count on a double bottom. I'd rather take the small loser here, because you don't want to over lever here. You want to let this get going in here on the second 2. If you think, oh, okay, I've got a good finish, I got a motive wave, there's the retrace. Now you could add there. Now I can go 3, 4 to try and get that 5 to the median line. I think that's a better way to approach that, so that you don't go too heavy here, considering the backdrop of equities. that we're all aware of. And of course, you know, the dollar is going to be influential here, you know, across all asset classes. So I think a very reasonable low risk. Look at the 95 to 1 here, 23 to 1. Again, it's the kind of thing where if you trade traditional assets, why would you not take that trade? Right? Well, you can say, well, the broader macro environment here doesn't warrant a look at this. Well, you know, to each his own, right, as to whether you're comfortable with that. I would have no hesitation at all, you know, given the risk and potential reward taking that trade. So choose wisely, right? We'll only have so much capital to allocate. If you're looking for allocation into equities, this would be about as good as you're going to see. Like the new color scheme over here, ALTG. That looks pretty cool. Great work from him as always, right? What a skilled Elliottician he's become right now. Now he's a purple on his way towards brown. Great work as usual. Thanks for that, Ethan. I appreciate the post. I got another one from him down below. Okay, so let's keep moving. Back to you in a sec. All right, next up, I've got CN Salazar giving us a look at Generac Holdings. Now this one he's posted before, so I know he's tracking it closely. And he gave me two charts here, one a 15-minute that has already been stopped out, and he's acknowledging that here, that there was a candidate here for a potential turn. We'll look at that. His entry has been stopped out, so I pushed out to a higher time. He gave me a daily and an 8-hour here. If we look at it on the daily, I don't know that we get a whole lot more. Now, for those of you wondering here, this is the Sonar Lab. This is their free indicator, their order block indicator. For those of you that have not made the decision to go with their paid indicators on TradingView, which we highly recommend and encourage you to consider. But if your discount would be noted in the link tree underneath this here, if that's of interest to you. But if you would rather just stick with their free indicators, their order block identifier, so you can see the blocks here coming up. These are the blue boxes drawn here. Now, so this is an interesting interpretation. He's clearly looking for a turn. RSI would support it. We've come down. We've gone below 30, and then we've crossed the average here. Looks like you might get a little bounce here, but I think we could probably all agree that there's an alternate here, kind of staring you in the face. Excuse me. Oh, that could be a triangle. All right, so you do something like this. I'm going to dig in here. I'm just going to show you a candidate for an alternate. So you can see the 5 here. Now, it could be it's a little bit of a hopium hit there, trying to work that as a 3. I just at first glance here at this distance, it does look a lot more like a 5 to me. So, but what would that mean? Well, so A, B, that's an ugly B, but A, B. Okay, could that be C? Well, let's see if maybe we can get that here. Well, the 4-5 would be clear. So potential relabeling here would be more bearish. So we might look at it here. If this is ABC coming down here, oh shit, I can't. Oh, can we get away with that? I can't quite tell. No, it doesn't look like we can. It looks like, God damn it, come here. Looks like we'd have, well, maybe. Bear with me. Let's get it right on there. You got to get right on it. Okay, so there, let's lock that. Okay, right on the pivot. Okay, so can we duck that? Can we get out of it? Yeah, we can. So just barely, right? Well, here's the order block. Grab it. Right. Remember, that doesn't. Why is the order block still there? You might be asking. Because it doesn't close above, right? And that's how the default is set. So while we challenge it, we challenge these pivots. The fact that they can't get the liquidity up here, interesting, right? It's negative. So this was likely a liquidity grab. So they're still grabbing liquidity here because you can just see it reflected in the wicks. So this is still liquidity grab, valid order block that is not removed because the close wasn't above. And then down we go. Okay, so we've got a candidate here. Get it back together here for this to be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which would give us the C here. Now, I'm not discounting his count. Okay, so with what's happening over here, I'll just give you an alternate to consider. Well, I suppose it's possible here. We've got an X here, or this is A, B, C, D. It would be more bearish over here. Let's go with the ABC into the X here. So this would be might be A, B, and 1, 2, 3, 4 working on the side. So here I'm trying to get you to we'll get to the same location, CN, so we could both see a potential buy setting up here. So that would be your ABC. So let's finish that. we would not have that X in here. So we'd have this coming in here for a candidate for the Y. So we can probably sneak this in here this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I get an A. I might spend a little more time on that, but just so you get the basic gist of it here. So which pivot, A, B, C, right? Is that enough to get launched? Well, that's whether you got here the way I'm counting it or the way he did via the triple. Well, if it starts to fall apart here, let's go to the 4 hour here. Now he had sent me the 15. You'll note the order block finder here. We get different things here. So here we oh shit! He gave me like a very. He gave me a 15. So here, let's go to 30. We can see it. So the potential was here, right? So I can see what he was thinking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, and then you had the ingredients here for this to go. 1, 2. This starts to go. What do we run into? Right, order block. So you run into a supply zone here, rather than breaking through it. The market's not strong enough to break through it, and then give you your 3 before we go 4 or 5. So this is the turnaround here. So that's pretty much a. Bulls just got faced right there. So could be liquidity up here, could be unfilled orders, could be a whole lot of things, right? It's just, what do we know, right? It's supply. So supply comes in, drives it down. Now we would have potential support down here for the double bottom. But could we be getting out of here? Yeah, well, this could still be A, B, C, right? Until we overlap that, right? And that's that one tick below, and that's off the table. So we'd have a candidate for an A, a B, depending on how far this goes, right? We might get something like that. Remains to be seen, right? So right now, I don't see a great location here, CN. I see here that your stop hit, looking to reload from a bounce at 174-ish. Oh, so I think we're already past that here. So I think that's likely no longer on his plate. So this would be the C for a candidate for the Y to be in. So this... Oh, right. At this point in time, we're here. You probably just use that for demand here. Just this whole lower zone here. Do we hold? Can we get a double bottom here? RSI is, ripe for a possible turn as we approach the 30, but then a long way to go to make that distance between the average and the actual RSI. This is, I think, a hurry up and wait. I don't know that I'd be jumping too hard, right? It's impossible here if we relabel this per his initial interpretation. 3. Well, I sure would be watching here. You could literally put an alert 1 tick below the low. Is this that? Then any potential 1, 2 gets is unqualified. Invalidated is the word I'm seem to be struggling to find. All right, so this is a hurry up and wait down here for Generac. What you'd want to see, of course, Sian. I don't need to remind him. He knows what he's doing. We got to at least get a higher high, right, before you start thinking about possibly coming out of there. I think that's the safer way to approach this. Now, possibly we could just go into consolidation here. I can't eliminate that possibility, but I'd be very mindful of that low. Okay, thanks, CN. I got another one from him over here. I got to just bring it up. Look at that. He gave it to me. That's a nice way to get 2. Done. Okay, so this is Velo 3D. Again, I know this is one he's been trading because we've seen this before. You had earlier thought maybe the 3 red was not complete. What do you think now? Is the smaller 4 looks abnormal? Okay. Well, let's take a look here. So that's a candidate here. Well, with this would certainly we could just literally look at it and determine we would not have the right look here, right? That's not a look you want. So channeling is such an important concept in Elliott Wave Theory. You would really want this to be, going this maybe you could allow for the diag here, but really at this point we're too far gone here. My opinion, right? My interpretation of this, that I want my impulses to be all self-contained. You've seen me do this before, right? So I want an impulse to this is like immediately that's not an impulse to me, right? We're just way too much time going sideways here. So what's the alternate? If it's not an impulse, what are we doing with it? Let's consider where we are, right? So if the Elliott's not clear and it's not adding value, there's no reason to lean on it. What am I on a 4 hour here? So what are we going to call this? An ABC. So here, this is our launch point. We're going to have to dig into that a little bit more. see if this is potentially, boy, we're really struggling to find a 2 there. Let's go to a 30. See how that looks, if we can dig one out of there. Okay, so here's, well, I mean, this is what I do. I always like to put a pivot on the low so I don't ever miss it. So I like that pivot right there. Here, let's bear with me here. Let's get, yeah, it looks like it's good. Okay, so let's lock that. Okay, so we got our low here. All right, so order block, right, can skew your eye. So here's where we start. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, that's a big rip in the... It looks like you'd have to do it this way. 1, 2, 3 will be the shortest there. That's not going to work. Now let me put this here just to do a little measuring here. So, what am I, 30? We're getting pretty skinny. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So I think I like the 1. This could be A, B, C down here. Now we can't go 1. We can't go 3. Give it to me in log. Do we need to be in log? Well, yeah, let's take it out of log here and see how we look. Low of $1.40. Well, it's certainly 4 times the range. Well, let's stay. This is how he's interpreting it. So let's keep it there. Now, can we get that? Well, maybe let's slow down for a second. Let's could we possibly get here? Well, let's take this up a degree. You have to. You can't ignore. It's like we've got to use that, right? So 1, 2. So this has to be 1, 2. So we have to go down a degree into a 1, 2. Let's measure here. I'm even sure we can make that work just looking at it. But let's just take a peek at it here and see how this looks. Right, this is the process, and any LAtician is going to go through here. So as you know, I like to do, I want to wick off these 1s. Can we get an impulse there? It looks like we can. So it looks like you might. Oh shit. Actually, you might get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's change that. Oh, go to white. Let's go down a degree so we keep it clean. 1 A, B, C into the 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into the 3. A, B, C into the 4. 1, 2. That's a little bit of a squish into that. Oh, again, you can't expect it to always subdivide perfectly. I think the broader count there is what's important here. So A, B, C, 1, 2, pick your 3. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. So actually, I think that could play. Now, can we work this here? I may end up contradicting myself, but well, let's do a little measuring, right? So this would be, okay, so how do we get some clarity on where we've gone here? Well, so right off the bat, right now, look, I did not know that was going to be there. So right off the bat here, we're going to the most probable location for a third relative to this very shallow 1, 2. So that would make me lean into at least initial placement. I'd put the 3 here based on that, right? Again, I'm just playing the odds there. So what would we do with this, right? Again, boy. I just don't think you can do it because look at the length of time and the complexity of the 2 relative to the 4. I just don't think we can, while you'd kind of like to based on this. So one possibility here is we've gone 4 and we have a truncation, which you go to as a last resort. You guys have heard me say that many times. So last resort, we'd have a slight truncation there. Whew, don't like it, but the 4 to this 2 are balanced much better here. Again, that's a last resort. What am I? Jeez, that's a 30 minutes, so there's not much else to dig out of there. Let's make sure I'm clean here, that I'm not. I think I am, but let's just double check this 3. Did I get it? Ooh, look at that. Just barely got long enough. Okay, so we can, 3 is not the shortest here. 3, 4, we don't overlap the 1. Here's your 5, so I might be inclined to go with the truncation here, reluctantly so, CN. I don't see a better fit, and what that does is it means that we stay consistent with the Elliott channeling idea here. Let's bring this down so I get my, you can allow for a little overthrow here, but I'd go up there to the 3. So I get my impulse here, all self-contained. Now, what are we doing here? This looks like, well, if you know, again, this is a judgment call, right? There's no question. There are locations on the chart. Again, Elliott's not perfect, so no chart is going to be absolute. Well, not no chart. There have been perfect Elliott counts, but you don't want to expect that, right? So this, while that's absolutely a last resort to truncate, I don't see a better fit on this to get us done. Maybe if I spend some more time on it, but I don't think you need to. What I think we need to do here is just, okay, what can we be objectively identifying? Here's a swing. Let's call it a motive wave, right? Whether you want to interpret that as, you know, if you wrestle with the truncation as I do, I don't think it matters here. If we're going to correct something like this, I don't think we're quite yet. Well, what would the case be? That you've got some support down here? Oh, well, it's always just a little funky in log scale, but let's see if we can get some value out of it. So here's the value range here. So if we were to come, all right, so we could even do it a little bit like this. We come in like this for this value area. Let's allow for the idea. Now, when I pull here, oh shit, what do I got? Oh, that's interesting. You gotta, okay, I guess you're doing it. Like, oh, I see. I can barely see it. Okay, so there it is. Actually, I'm gonna just, sorry, Sian, I got to do it. Let's do it that way so I can see them. Okay, so we're going to go 1. Let me get that right on the pivot. Now, so why am I doing it off of the truncation here? So, you know, a purist might do it this way if this is the 5, because the algo is not going to care about that, right? So the algo is just going to use swing low to swing high. So if we were to come down into this region, right, that's most probably, right now we never know, right, most probably where that algo would fire. On the buy side, now we've got all of this potential support here. Right? It's always just that, right? This little consolidation here you see reflected in the volume profile, that we got this little consolidation here as we put in the 3-4 before the last kick up. I don't know that I'd buy that. What's our assumption here? It looks like you might be able to simplify here. It looks like we might be able to go 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, B, 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like you might have something there. So you'd be getting there. Here's the A. Here's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's a little. Fuck, is it a diag? Well, it almost doesn't matter. It's a 5. It's a motive. Again, A, B, 1, 2. It looks like this would be 3, 4, 5. Right? So you can get an A, B, C into this. Actually, it doesn't really matter. A, B, C, A, B. You can get, oh shit, again, does it really matter? I don't know that it does. If we're looking here, let's go low to low, golden zone. All right, so that's what matters. All right, that's how the market moves, not why it moves. So here we get our perfect retrace into a golden zone. 1, 2, 3. Well, we've overlapped here, so if we're going to come down one more, we're finishing a diag. So let's dig in there. Okay, so oh shit, some sort of. Well, you could go A, B, C, A, B, C. Oh, Jesus. That's not looking good. Looks like we've gone A, triangle B into the C. Well, the implication would be we need to come down one more time. So if this is the B, well, let's label it. Okay, so, oh, again, I don't know that it matters here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can we get down here for the 5? Get into that. Here, let's take this up. See a little better. Can we get into that? Well, okay, so ways to help identify a diag. Right, you heard me say this many times. We want to look from the start of the 1 through the pivot of the 3. We're looking for the 50. Here we get further, right? We get right into that window. So we have a candidate here. We have dueling algo, or pardon me, we have algos that are on the same side. So we know, I have no hesitation, that we know an algo fired here, likely, as we tag the golden zone, another algo fire. So you have two targets down here, both. Well, now if we put this together and we can bring this down to the second target and this down to the first target, this would be the implication here. If we come down here and get either, this is where you would start buying. I mean, assuming you want to get into this. For CN or any others that like what they see here are thinking about trading this, now we'd have high volume. We'd have an Elliott count that, while you'd be slightly tenuous relative to the truncation, which it appears that we are forced into. Right now, others may interpret it differently. Right, it's to each their own. AB coming down for the C. So could we essentially end up with a I guess we'd have a zigzag if we're going to work 5, 3. Oh shit! Can we get a 5 in there? Yeah, I guess you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so you'd have a zigzag here, a shallow zigzag. Now, of course, the 2 would be more likely to be found here, and we may start to roll here. Well, you see the alternate, right? If we finish here. Well, so you're down here saying, well, if we're going to come down, if that's the most probable location and we're going to come down lower, potentially here, if this finishes here, this is a 1. We'd get a 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So for a bigger A, B, C, you got to just be mindful of that potential here. I think you could take a nibble here, CN, right? If you're looking to add or anyone else interested in this asset. Might be an area to nibble. I'd be prepared to be dollar cost averaging on the way down, right? If you really, really like this and see some long-term potential, that's probably how I would approach it. A little nibble here, I might start here, and then a little more here, and final load here down at the 618 in here in this range, looking for the recovery, right? So essentially, all it would be is swing, internal retracement. All the market ever does. Okay, all right. Let's pause there. I think I got all of his covered. I got PayPal with ALTG. Okay, back in a second. Okay, ALTG is back with another chart here. This is PayPal. This is one he's posted a couple of times. Now, what's striking about ALTG's work here and what he's posted here, as you'll recall from the one earlier, I think it was our second one we did, how similar the counts are. They're almost identical. Off the low here, I'm on a daily here, and I'm in log scale in PayPal. Off of the low, well, hard to argue with that being an impulse. Now, a little tricky up here at the top. Essentially, it's a double bottom into the top. I'd be more inclined to go with his count here. Now, you'll note here that he's pulling the median lines here. This is a bit of a judgment call. Oh, shit, if I can get that hot. There's a little bit of a judgment. I mean, you could just as well do it here. Right? It doesn't really change it here. I think you get a little bit more... I mean, so why do it here? You get a little bit more distance here. You're going to have to wait and see. So if we don't get a tag in the median line here, we roll over. Okay, so this all gets invalidated. Oh, let's shrink that B down there a little bit. If it's not ticking here, then I'd move over to the other and just say, hey, am I getting anything better there? But I think this is perfectly reasonable. And I think the reason he's doing it here is if this were to be A, B, C, right, you can see the distortion of the range of the C relative to the A, B. So neither one is perfect. Here you get a monster A, B, and you get a tiny little C. So neither one is perfect. Well, perfect. Perfect is not what we're looking for. But does it have the right look, right? So you're going to have to compromise to some degree here. Now, what gives you the confidence here? Well, first, just hit the golden zone, right? So monster swing for PayPal, right? The economy starts to correct. Where do we fall to? Golden zone. Now, it should be noted, we do get a little break here, but that's just wick, right? So you see, you just have a little wick break here. Again, based on all the views of this algorithm in action here, we are seeing that wick only have to be a close below before it's invalidated. So just as with his earlier chart, I've got a golden zone dropping right yet into, and well, if not yet a golden zone, another area here. Again, I think his first chart was identical to an area where we know the algo is likely to participate. So what I might do here, Ethan, is drop that down a little bit as you did with the first one. So you take your first bite at the 50. If it's going to drop 618, right, you're going to split the difference on your fill, right? Your fill is going to be somewhere in between the two, so you're going to get a slightly better price there. I mean, so why take this trade, right? Given the background, the macro background, well, number one, and again, as long as that pivot holds, that 80% is in play. Now, if we get it twice here, again, if we don't get golden here, we'll have a corner within a golden corner. First target up here, 1618. So there's this one. That's not about 9.5 to 1. Then this one is just ridiculous. It's 340 to 1. So in terms of what your risk is, in terms of where that's headed, see, all he's doing here is just giving you two plays. So you got a trading plan here. First one here, stops are below, right? Now you don't have to use this pivot as the low. That's what's comfortable and appropriate for your account size with regards to the amount of risk that you're taking here. You could trade this with options, but you're going to need to buy time, right? So that's why, I mean, it's the trade-off with options, right? You say, oh, it's going to cost less than investing in the stock to get the same, get the same position size. but time decay works against you, right? So if you're long an option here, if you want to buy time, well, you got to pay for it. So it may or may not be the best use of equity there. Again, that's just individual preference and what kind of trade you're trying to put up here. So we're working off of a daily chart here. So a daily golden corner is not to be ignored. But I sure as hell would have what is this? I sure as hell would have an alert right there. And if we break this, right, that 80% odds is, well, we lose the golden, right? So you lose the algo here. If this were to drop lower, you don't lose the corner pocket, right? Do you see what happens to the angle, right? If we're going to drop dramatically, right, that angle, it doesn't play as well, right? So then it may not be the right tool for the job. But as long as we hold the golden, perfectly valid, right? So the internal as well as the much larger two pointing for that 3, again, just using most common targets if it's going to play Elliott ball. So another one, right? PayPal, right? How you trade it, right? It's up to the individual. I think you'd be perfectly fine here owning the equity. In fact, I might do equity over options here just because you're going to have to buy so much time to cover yourself for that possibility. I mean, let's give it a more, maybe we're out here, something that would look again, I mean, it's tough to make that call here. We're just kind of predicting, but even if we look out here, that's July of 24, right? You want to buy a leap, right? You want to buy that much time in an option. That's why I think the underlying be your better choice. Okay, with that said, right, certainly one to keep an eye on. If you're not going to participate, might be one to track, right? So, of course, one possibility is here, if you want to let that go, wait for the 4, right? Now do we get the median line? Remember that 80%, right? Until this pivot is broken, stays in play. Or, now I should note here, if we were to drift, right, where this gets 1, 2, and we drift here, and then we started to move sideways, you'd be less enthusiastic about that as the right tool for the job. I mean, of course, you'd break this one if we start to go lower here and we start doing something like this. It's not going to be as effective. Right now, these are both the right tool for the job, right? You're just playing that 80% probability, a pattern you recognize, algo's participating. Right? Why would you not take that trade? Okay, right? Only because you didn't want to park capital there for that long, or you like something better, or you don't trade traditional assets. All right, we'll finish up here. I got George has given me a couple here, and that'll be a detailed look at Ripple, which may be the toughest count on the board, and then we'll look at the S&P and Bitcoin. Okay, guys, let me pause there. I'll be back in a sec. Okay, guys, here next up, these will be our last two. I've got GZ1968. You guys know that's George, and he's got a couple accounts here on Ripple. So one thing I would suggest for anyone who's watching, whether member or YouTube sub, before we get into this, if you're wanting to work on your Elliott chops, this is a great one to test yourself. One of the more difficult counts you're going to find on the board amongst any assets. Very difficult to apply Elliott here and not have to compromise somewhere with regards to rules and guidelines, which is, where we make the distinction between a purist and someone who perhaps is less so, let me say it that way, which is how I would identify myself. So I think this is his primary. Basically, he and I were exchanging charts yesterday, and I don't think we agreed on where we were going here, but we were kind of back and forth and catching each other's mistakes, and always fun to have that intellectual back and forth. And it's one of the things that is always inherent in my job is that, boy, if I make a mistake, I am busted quickly, right? And I had a couple of mistakes yesterday. I was a bit cavalier in how quickly I labeled it, and George nailed me on that. So let's go look at his primary here. And again, if you haven't done this yet, I would encourage you to take a swing at it yourself and see if you come up with anything resembling either what I have or what George has. Okay, so let's, again, based off, one thing I will note here that I like to see, note that he's got different time frames here, and he's got, these are all daily. So he's got different approaches here. So he's got something very long-term simplified here. He's got something very detailed here. These two very detailed. And here we've got no Elliott. He's just using geometry, i.e. speed fans here, and his RSI. So you're getting multiple looks at the same asset. And when the Elliott is this, difficult to identify here, this is a good approach, right? So you're not tied to one chart, one typical approach. Very, very well done, George. Okay, so let me get this up here because this is the one he and I were exchanging ideas on yesterday. Now, I think part of what makes this so difficult is the beginning of this. Now we're over here on Bitstamp. Oh shit, I didn't check to see if there's any more history than this, but we're going back to, what are we in? 13 here. Now, what makes this difficult here is that this is not the lowest low. So you can't go 1, 2 because this is a lower low. So you're kind of stuck with, well, what is the possibility here? If this is the 1, this well, we're going to make this work. You'd have to turn this into some sort of expanded B. Oh man, it's really it's a force fit, right? So you're. Let's mark this here so we see how this is so close, but this is a lower low, so it cannot under no sort of point, purist or not. That's one rule you can't break, right? There is no breaking of that rule. So this can't be 1, 2. So we what are we going to do with it? So it's really unsolvable without doing some ridiculous gymnastics to try and squeeze your bias in there. But I think if we went into, we're gonna have to start the count here. So you're gonna have to make a judgment call as to how you're gonna use this. As we see it here, the alternate would be do here, and we just call this okay. Well, this is upon arriving at the exchange, right? We have volatility here that we can't address. Well, what we can't do is call it a 1, 2. Oh shit! What are we going to do with that? I think that it's not fruitful to invest too much time and energy over here. So for the Elliottician here, as this is the lowest low here, I would just go 1, 2 here. Now, then it becomes, and this is, I've looked at this 3 or 4 times and spent some time on it yesterday, and I'm back with a fresh look of eyes at it today. Certainly considering his count here. This actually looks better, because what we're looking at is, what's the relationship and how are these two compare? Oh shit, can I do this? Let's see if it'll let me do it. Sometimes it won't let me. Okay, there we go. All right, so this would be trying to compare in time and depth the 2 and the 4, and you can see we're not out of bounds here. This would certainly be consistent, and it's not that we're trying to match them, but you don't want to have a major distortion here. They're both sideways and, I guess we'd have to call that complex. So you're not getting particularly good alternation. But it's not unreasonable to count it this way. So per his count, this is his count, and then we'll look at an alternate that I was working on yesterday, is that if indeed we're going to go 1, 2, and well, okay, I think we can all agree this is an impulse here. Although this is a little error here, George, that, I'm assuming you were working on something here and changed your mind, right? That's what happened to me yesterday. Very easy to do. So this we wouldn't have a 5 here, but we certainly most probably have a triangle here, which we do through an ABCDE. So 1, 2, 3 triangle for the 4 here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as a candidate for the 3, it's a perfectly reasonable idea that this is the 3. It's long for the 4. Now it's going to get trickier here, and this is a function of what's happening here. So per his count, we've got the 4 is in, and we've got and this is very tricky in here, that we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 for his count, right? We're going to go 5. Okay, so let's just zoom in there, make sure I'm labeling that correctly here. Let's get these dialed in. So 1, 2, in for the 3, down for the 4. Okay, so George, I'm going to assume you see, well, before I start correcting, let's double check this here. Now, how do we look down here at this low? It looks like we're going to sneak by. So that is a can. I remember doing this. I think that, yeah, so we're still good here. So we have a contender here. This is the 2. We do not overlap here, and I'm sure he would have checked that. So just me double checking. Okay, so that I don't have mine incorrectly done. So this is definitely a candidate here. So we go ABC into a 1. Here's the 2. This is a, okay, so we're going to squeeze a 5 in there. 3 into the, I guess we're going to do it here. We're going to have to go A, B, C, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we get our 3 here. So it's 1, 2, A, B. Well, this is going to have to go up a bit here. So we'd have to go A, B, C into the 3, screaming down for the 4. We just barely are spared the overlap, which would disqualify this count. So we've got the C, I guess we're doing a WXY here into the 4 here. A, B, C into a W. What are we doing with the X here? Where's the X? Oh man, I'm not so sure about that. So you're trying to go W. Oh, I might disagree with you there, George. If you're going to try and go, how are you even doing this? So you're going to go ABC into the W. Well, I'm going to have to open this up here. Let's go to an 8-hour here so I can follow your thinking here. This is the 4. We're trying to complete a 5 via either a complex or a simple 3. Okay, so AB, I got it. Okay, now I can see it. Okay, so you're going to go ABC into a W. Squeezing an X in there, I'd beg to differ, right? I don't think I don't think you can call that a 3. You wedging a 3 into that. Now, no, all right, before I disqualify it, here, let us do this, right, which is what you have to do, right? If you just mark it so when you change the time frame, let's go to a 2-hour here. See if I can really get a 3 in there before I say it's maybe questionable. Oh, shit. Where is it? There we go. Okay, so can we get a 3 in there? Right, so you see when you change time frame. Okay, is there a 3 in there to call this an X? I'm not seeing much here. Okay, so maybe you're Jesus. Maybe you're squeezing it. I mean, this is just a free fall. So maybe your thinking is there's enough of a retrace here to go into a B, into a C. Okay, let's go with it. So okay, then we go into an A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Extension in the 5th. I guess then you're thinking A, B, C into the B. Okay, so I got to get back out to where we were on the 8-hour here. So let me pull back again. It's a very tough one, but again, I think a really good exercise for anyone who wants to work on that skill set here, because this will challenge everyone. Right? Talk about a chart where you're going to get 10 analyticians to give you 10 different counts. I'd be willing to bet that, right? So, I mean, geez, we got a lot of disagreement amongst members and senseis here. ABC into a W, X, AB. Oh, man. Are you trying? My guess is you meant these to go up here, right? So you're going to go A, B, C into the Y to give you the 1. So we've got an expanding diag into the 1. Let's get that down. He always uses these giant degrees. WX, let's put that in micro, get it in green so we can see it. Okay, so we're going to go 1 WXY into his 2 here. So it's 1, 2, 1, 2. Again, I'm just going to shrink these down. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 into the 5 of 3, 3, 4. Little wedge here takes us into the 5. We get a little diag. So we get our A here. Now this is something he and I both of our accounts had to deal with here. Truncation here, you're really kind of forced into it. Again, you don't want to do it unless there's no other solution. Okay, so then we'd rip up here again. You can see how distorted these are with regards to wave relationships. They're very abnormal, but they are what they are, right? It's not like we can't count them. I just think it's very hard for anyone to have any high degree of confidence in what we've got here until we get more information, because it's an unbelievably complex correction. So WXY via the triangle, that's a good call, knowing that you can put the triangle in the Y. Good review. It's anyone who's unsure, that's where the Elliott cheat sheets really do come in handy. Now, interesting, you've got the triangle here, but you had the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over there. That's probably just something you forgot to change. So WXY into the B here. Again, I'm just going to shrink these down. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gives us the C of the 2. So now the bet is that we're going diag here into a 1. Okay, well, so first thing you'd look here and say, huh, interesting. Why did we stop there? All right, of course, you know where I'm going with that. All right, so we're right in the pocket here, whether you're pulling it from here or here. Now we've got perfect golden zone here. This is secondary, so most likely they use that, right? That's why you would use. So you look at it and say, well, why are you using that one, not that one? Well, you'd want to look at both, but I would look here because just eyeballing it, it would appear to me, right, that the algo used it. All right, so here's the 50, right to the first target, second target to the tick. Now, of course, it keeps going. So that's how you would justify using that to identify the golden here, right? So do you see why I'm doing that? Looks like, all right, so there's some alternate counts here. So, okay, so we got a 1, 1, 2 here. I'm using the secondary pivot to identify the resistance here. Oh, you might have also just, come here. you might have done something like this. Say, okay, we got a little, perhaps a little resistance here, just structural, right? We don't overlap that. So this is an interpretation. Now, okay, so if we're done here, that would mean the 5 is in of the C of the 2 at this degree. Oh shit, what are we not used here? Here, I'll go back to white so we can see that a little better. And then well, let's go with here a diag here. This is kind of ugly, right? So again, this is what makes this such a very difficult chart to count, right? So really just consolidation. Now, note here, so as I draw that, we're coming back down to test the top of it. So what's happened here is a great example here where you will often hear me say, don't buy it here. You're right at the breakouts, 80% fail. So what do we do right now is if you're quick on your feet here and you got that pop, okay, great. Well, if you didn't take it here at the golden zone because you knew that was likely to be algo resistance, well, we're right back to where it broke out. So did you miss anything here? Well, you might have missed that turn. If not, if you were like, oh, I'm not sure, right? So for a bull, as George is here, why would you not buy it there? If you're a bull, right? If you're playing this count, well, do we have enough for a 4 there? Yeah, it looks like we do. We have not yet. We have not yet overlapped the 1. All right, so we're still playing for well, let's go with his labeling here. So 1, 2, okay. So pardon me, we're going to do this as a diag. It almost looks like he's assuming we're going to overlap here to play this as a diag. I think he had some notes up here about a diag. Oh, I think he did, but I can't find him. Okay, so 1, 2, well, let's just do a little measuring. That looks like that might be in that range that we would anticipate, right? So, oh, that's interesting. Look at that. Talking about confluence. Think the algos are in here? Look at this. So if this is 1, 2 or A, B, right, it wouldn't matter, right? So look at the confluence here. So we've got the 1618, right? It's tagging that as it hits the golden zone, right? And look at that. Look how precise that is, right? We don't break the 65, right? 65 to the tick. There's the 61, right? 2 ticks off of it. So certainly we can understand what's happening there. It almost wouldn't matter, right? If you went here and you say, well, hey, man, I don't like that. Here, I'm going to use the dominant to dominant. You'd be right at the 1618, just shy of that. Perhaps it's structure. I would pull it from here because I know they used it. Create some confluence here. So are we coming down? Well, what am I on? 8 hour? Let's go to a 2. A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like you might have a little more here. Now, so you'd want to put an alert here. Are we going to have to convert the whole thing into a diag? Kind of looks like that's his anticipation that this is a diag coming to finish the 1 wave at the next degree. One thing, right? So always just, kind of by just process and habit, when I'm looking for a 4 in a diag, if we're going to overlap the 1, I'm looking for it at the 50. So anything down here for a bull, this would be an area of interest. Pull it over, right? We can see all of this consolidation here, right? So this is where the market finds agreement here. We've had some pushes lower, some pushes higher, but this seems to be where we're retracing to. So I'd have an alert on this, right? Should we overlap it? Then you're going with the diag here. A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, A, B, C into this. Now you're working on the 1, 2, 3, A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 more down. Tease it up. Tease it up pretty nicely for a bull. That's the pattern you're looking to complete here. So pull this off of there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's not assume. Don't assume the diag until you get the overlap, right? So you got to put an alert on that. See if we get just a tick below it. It's all you need. All right, then we know we're working a diag. Well, the channeling is well done here, right? So he's using Elliott channeling. If you see this here, he's using the Elliott channeling. Let's make that a 2 so you can see a little bit better. So you see as we come down here, he's using that traditional Elliott channeling, trying to identify location for the 4. So what you got choices here as to how you want to play that. Again, assuming you're a bull, if we come down here, you're gonna need an ABC. So where your first retracement is, that should be the B, going for the C, looking for that target. Anticipating that we're going to complete the 1 off of that entire count as he has it here. The 2 is in. We're going into the 1 wave of the 3rd, looking for much higher prices. So there it is. Wave 1, expanding diag forming. Right now we don't have the overlap yet, but that seems to be the play he's looking for. Right now, you can adjust accordingly. If we don't overlap, we don't overlap. Right then, okay, what are we doing with it? Do we have an impulse? Maybe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the whole thing has to roll up. Right, so we'd go 3 here. 4 would go over here. You'd be looking for 1 to complete a little bit higher, then down to the 2. I'm assuming you guys are following me there. I know members likely are. Okay, whoops. Didn't mean to get that one out of there. Okay, so we'd be here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then whether we overlap or not, I mean, you got an ugly 1, but we can live with that in the 1, 2. And now, if we're not going to overlap, I need an impulse here. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I don't overlap, now I'm going to feel pretty good about this being an impulse. What's the alternative? ABC, of course. Where's the resistance going to be? Well, you know where I'm going next. Here, I'd start there. All right, can we get through this? If we don't get through on the 3, I'd be anticipating we'd get through on the 4 to the 5. Right? You got to get through, but remember that's not the high. Then you got to get through this one. Right? There's the biggie, and that might be just what stops you. So 4, 5, next golden zone. Algo is going to fight you there, looking for a retrace into the 2. Oh, let's bring it all the way back down if we get it. Right? So you'd be looking for an entry here between, what is that, 51 and 43. Right, so that's one count here. I just quickly, members got a big back and forth on this yesterday. That's here's an alternate way to look at this. Now, I tell you what I did yesterday. I saw George's count. I was like, okay, maybe. And I just kind of quickly did this. Oh, maybe, and threw a W there, X there, and a Y there. Well, boy, he didn't like that count, and he was absolutely right. That was a little bit sloppy here. But all I was really doing was just working off of what appears to be the swing structure. And I think this is, this is the balance you try and find, right? For me, I'll show you what I mean here. So I've got a couple of areas here that are very tricky and open to interpretation. And once again, no two Elliottians are likely to see this the same way. It's just the reality of Elliott, right? Love it or hate it. This would be one of the weaknesses. Is there are certain areas where it's interpretation. Do these qualify? Well, if there's a rule break, well, there's a slight. Let's go with guideline here. There's a definite rule break here, but this is where I think being a purist doesn't make sense. Okay, it's just my view, right? So we can get this done here. Let me get to an 8-hour here and just review this. A lot of members saw the back and forth with he and I yesterday. So okay, so can we get a diag on the way down? So whether this is a 3 or a 1, I'm open to that. Certainly that possibility here. It's an awfully long and wide 4, but the premise being that off of this pivot low here, I'm on the same exchange. I would ignore this, right? So that's somebody got bent over there, likely at market or something happened there. Somebody got a very, very ugly fill. 3, this is clearly looks pretty hard to ignore the triangle here. So something completes up here. Now, is it a 1? Is it a 1? Is it a 3? Well, to work the correction, which is always the more challenging part of Elliott, right? It's always in the corrections, impulse and diag. Motive waves are pretty easy. I think there's a case here with this. So again, first, I remember I did this, right? I was just kind of working with swing structure here. And then I said, well, let's see if I was a little cavalier with that. Let's see if I can actually get the count done. Well, this is ugly, but it's there. All right, so you'd be going 1, 2, right? Now it's the 2 that's questionable. 3, 4, and then finishing the 5 down here. Now, does that have the right look? No, right? Does not, right? The 2 is question mark. I can get the 3. Now, can I get the 2 in there? It's force fit? Maybe, right? It's just there's nothing here that's particularly good. So you're just kind of working with what you can see. I think this was something worth noting here. If this is our 2 here, well, it doesn't really matter here. So we clear triangle. So candidate, right? So this would be an alternate. And again, I'm never one to insist that, my count is right and yours is incorrect. There's never what I'm saying. Here's an alternate, was really all I was doing, was just trying to, get you guys to think about something else. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, candidate. Right? You got to go A, B, C. That's brutal. Now this again, here's a purist is going to fight this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this was a mistake I made yesterday. I had miscounted. I think I started on an impulse and I realized it was a diag, and then I didn't go back to change that here. I had a lot on my mind yesterday. Anyway, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Candidate for the A. Is that ideal? No. But can I get a diag out of that? Well, yeah, I can. So there's the B. Now you got to go A, B, C. So this is a sideways fuckery here. This is, I mean, that's an 8-hour, right? You got to deal with it. So what are we going to do with it? I think you're going to go with the double bottom here. Now you wouldn't want to truncate here. This would be edge of rule break here. I'm inclined to call it guideline, is that you wouldn't truncate there. So you'd go A, B. You can work the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into the A. Is it pretty? No, but it's there. A, B, C into the B, and then 1. Oh Jesus! I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is it there? Barely. Again, if I went down to a 30-minute, we could dig a little deeper. But I think you've got a candidate here for a 1. Oh, you got the A, B, C into the 2. All right, now we got to do this all through a series of 3s, so I can get the impulse into the. Oh shit! You could do this either way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or well, you can do it. It almost doesn't matter. A, B, C, right? So 1, 2, 3, clearly the 4, 5. A, B, C into the 4, and then A, B, C into the 5. So you get a candidate here for a 1. Pardon me. This would be a C. So you'd have diag 1, right? Duly noted. It's a double bottom. So while we wouldn't choose to find a truncation or even a double bottom here because it's a tick off. So it actually is a truncation. If we're going 2, 3, 4, 5, candidate to finish a C wave here of a W. Now here's where this is where I think purists, this is where I'm less so. This to me is so clearly a 5, right? That I think it's a mistake to say, well, fuck, I can't call it a 5 because I can't have for it to be an A wave, I'd have to have an expanding diag, and we don't have it, right? So 3 is just slightly longer than 1. 5 obviously slightly longer. Right, it's depending on your exchange here, right? So you would not be looking. What's the wrong one? So we got 1. Let's go into that. 1, 2. Now this is log scale, right? So you'd have to be noting that in arithmetic, right, longer is longer, right? So in arithmetic, I mean, longer is longer. So if we get this right on the pivot there, so we do have a longer 3 than a 1, right? So for a purist, you would want, if this is going to be a diag, you'd want, you wouldn't want this here. So you'd want, well, if we were going to do a leading diag, right, you'd want 1 longer than 3 and then 5. Here we've got 5 longer than 3, but 3 is longer than 1. So a purist is going to wrestle with this. My view is that I think that, again, this is just personal preference and personal choice as to how you interpret this. That's a 5 to me all day. And I think the broader structure here, so while I'm not suggesting, maybe it's a mistake here too. Let's go back into log. We can see this here as someone who teaches Elliott Wave, but we all got to live in reality here. And to me, there's 2 things here that really focus my attention. The broader swing structure here is a 3, right? I think we could probably all agree on that. That despite the unusual shaping here, it's a 3. So to try and back into it, because this is a little bit long, I don't have the perfect diag here. My view, I would stay with the broader swing structure here and not worry so much about the internal, in this particular case, where it's a judgment call. Now, as George laid it out, you can get it done without counting it the way I'm doing it. But again, my view is the broad swing structure is a 3. So, I mean, if you want to count that differently, have at it. But in my view, it's a 3, right? So to try and turn it into a 5, I think would be a mistake. Well, again, it's a question of how important is Elliott to your thinking here. So candidate, if you're working this as 3 and allowing for the slop here, that you could get this done here. Now, this is also this is something that comes up quite a lot. And, purists might disagree here. If this is an A, B, C, D, E, this being the D here, well, we do have some overlap here. So within the triangle, both the A and the C are overlapping the 1. Now, Sensei Tudum, right, who's got a level 2 certification in Elliott Wave, would say, well, the per Elliott Wave International here, what's important, ideally nothing in the 4 overlaps here, but it's the pivot of the 4. And in this case, if it's the E, as long as we're not overlapping here, you know, you could get away without calling this a diag here, allowing for the overlap here. So, but it almost doesn't matter if it's 1, 2, and this is going to play as the 3, and you can get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into it. So if you're going to go 1, oh shit, you could probably you could work this as a double top here, and then go into the 2 here. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can play this as an impulse. I don't think the triangle is in dispute. I think that we could probably all agree that's what we've got here. And then to come out of that 1, 2, 3, oh shit, that could be a triangle as well. Come 3, 4, 5 to give you the finish here, to give you an X, right? Again, back to sure looks like a 3 to me, right? A, B, C gets us the X. Now again, it gets a little tricky coming down. A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a clear impulse without an overlap, gives us the C. So I get a zigzag into an A wave. A, B, C into an A wave here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into the A, B, C into the B. 1, 2, 3, 4, we overlap. So I've got a diag into the C of the B. So I've gone A per the X, right? That interpretation, A, B. And now coming down, I've got a candidate here. This is the exact opposite interpretation of what George was posting. Again, not suggesting one is right and one is wrong. These are just 2 different ways to look at it, right? So what happens next is how we'll identify, is it a diag coming down or a diag going up? Right, so you can see here we've just overlapped the 1, so this is why everything gets converted into 3s. I made this mistake yesterday. I had a 5 here. I was thinking we could pull it off with a 5. Caught this, and then you got to convert it into a series of 3s, but you got to remember to go back and change the 5s you had. So A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C is probably triangle B, into a C down here. Again, count it however you like. A, B, C, right? It sure looks like a 3, right? Again, how you work this subdivision here, that's a 3 all day to me, all right? So if you see it differently, right, you trade accordingly. So my interpretation would be that we've got one more leg down here to finish the Y of the WXY. So if I pull that back out, all right, so how you're interpreting this, right, will influence what you see coming down here. So A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4. Additionally here, any help here that might be useful? All right, well, okay, if we're working 2 to 3, we've come to the 50. Now, since it's a diag, we'd want to look from the start of 1. We're a little shy. We're hitting the 38 in between. But enough to overlap here, so you have to play it as a diag if you're thinking there's one more leg down. And what do we get out of that C, right? Is it going to be another A, B, C? So this interpretation would be that we're working on the A, B, C. Now, why check here? Because I get an algo target, right? So this could be right here. Come up a little shy of the channeling. Oh, but we might do a little projecting as well. So let's go back. I might look 1 through 3. Here's the 100 down here. Let's look at 1 through 2. All right, so this is telling to me in a diag, most common wave 3 is the 12738. So here's the 127 to the tick, ABC. We're bouncing back. Again, we know there's an algo on board here. So what would make you get more enthusiastic about the short, right? If we retrace back into the pocket there. So you have a candidate there for a decent looking short. Oh, how much, if you want to give it room over the 4, that's an individual choice, right? How much do you like it there? I don't think I'd give it that much, right? Because you don't even have 2 to 1. So you're going to have to tighten up there. There's 4 to 1, 786, it'd still give you 3 to 1, looking for the algo target. Well, there's no rule that it has to stop at the first target, right? We could go down here. Right now you're going to have a slightly better looking, right? So you'd have A, B, this would be an extension in the C, but now we're coming closer to, so here if I bring it all the way back, we're coming closer to the 50. Shit, let's go to the daily here, to the 50 down here. So here's where if it's, right, if we're playing for a 4, if the 4's in per his count, right? Okay, different story. If the 4's in down here, well, we don't want it to go too far, right? You don't want a 4 going golden zone. You really want it to stay between 38 and the 50 if possible. So my interpretation is after all those gyrations, this is what we're doing. All right, interpret, this is personal choice as to how you want to trade that. Whether you're interpreting it either way, this is a low risk trade setup. If we're going to come up, right, you've got some low risk setups here. If we're in the process of that leading diag per, see if I can get per his count, if it's 1, 2, 3 rather than A, B, C, right, with the overlap here, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, well, one more leg up, and then you're going to know that this is, right, this is starting to be suspect, right? So if we're going to get one more leg up here, can we still work a 4? Well, we could still work the 4 all the way up to the break of the 2, right? But then it gets to be where the probability gets lower because it's atypical for a 4 to go that high, right? We want to trade those patterns where we recognize and we're in sync with probable locations for those pivots. Right? It's going to give you a higher probability of success there. So very interesting case study here. When he and I had a good back and forth on this yesterday, lots of interpretation, and again, some great catches on a few errors that I had made. Right, can't be sloppy with this group. They'll bust you. Okay, guys, I've got one more here. Wrap up here. We're going to look at we got the S&P, and so I'll look at it. So he's giving me a comparison between SPX and Bitcoin here. I won't take too deep a dive on Bitcoin because we're going to do that tomorrow. Okay, back in a second. Okay, guys, we'll finish up here. This is George again, giving GZ 1968. Well, we know him as George, know him and love him. SPX with its correlation to Bitcoin. So this is really interesting, and it's not always this way, but he and I, different interpretations here. Right? So love it or hate it about Elliott, there's certainly points within the chart's progression where it's open to interpretation. So he's working this here as he's doing. Oh, here I want to keep that correlation. So I've got the price chart is the S&P, and the orange line is Bitcoin. So we can look at that correlation. You can see how closely they are. Correlated here. So a couple of spots where the market gets away from Bitcoin here. We see it much bigger on this rally up here, which was likely my interpretation here, because it's a perfect golden zone, is that this is institutions driving it up so they can sell it. My interpretation, but so if we look at the count here, well, one, establishing how tightly they are correlated. Now, he does make a note up here that he did not count this as a leading diag, as a leading expanding diag, which you can kind of see how that might have played, right? You can kind of get a look at it here. Okay, could this be just a big diag going down? Because this pattern has occurred many times in the SPX past history and is always followed by a bull run. See second chart. Well, let's look at that. Oh shit! Here, I guess I gotta do it here. We gotta look at it here. So here are all of these patterns that are very similar, where it's a complex correction that could be easily interpreted as a leading diag. But what he's pointing out here is that these complex corrections, these in this place a 333 here, always lead to a bull. Well, maybe not always, but if we look back historically, I mean, we're going back to 1966. You see these patterns followed by bull runs. Now, are we going to get out of this with a bull run? Well, okay, let's consider the possibility. I mean, history is certainly implies that that's a possibility. So let's go look at the count here, and in doing that, so just to make it easier to follow here, I'm gonna take that off here so we can just focus on the count in front of us and the chart in front of us. So this being the SPX, I have a count over that would be very, very close. It's just using the futures. Continuous contract. Okay, so we're going to go 3, 3, 3. Okay, right. So A, B, C, he's taking into a W here. I think there's a few that's open to interpretation, right? So, but that's how he sees it, right? So it's ABC. ABC puts us into an X, so we get a WX. Now here's a fairly solid-looking impulse here. 1, 2, triangle 4, into a 5 here, then 3 into the B. Let me just brighten that up a little bit so we can see it better. So we get an A, expand the B. Good work here. So A, expand the B into the C to get the B relative to this A. So A, B, C gets us the Y. All right, so the Y goes in here. So the first double completes right here via, via the 3, 3, 3. All right, so A, B, C for the final 3, and we finish with a 5. So then we're going to go A, B, C into the X wave here, and as I was just mentioning here, let's see if I can tighten that up. Oh, do we have to do it here? Nope, I think we'll do it here. Yep, so we get a break here on this side. I kind of could have sworn we had a, oh, maybe, oh, I know why, because it's the SPX, not the futures. Okay, so we come right in the pocket here. We don't actually tag the golden zone. We do in the futures market. So 1, 2, 3 into the Y, up ABC into the X. Now, all right, what's the implication here? Well, one, this would be, as his color coding here would be Bitcoin, if the market's going down per that correlation, which is running very, I think it's over 70% in the NASDAQ, that we've got lower prices for both the S&P and Bitcoin per this count interpretation here. All right, so this would be A, B, and we'd have the 1, 2 already in, 3, 4, 5. So looking for this, I think our counts may be different, but we end up in the same range of where we'd be looking for entry. Oh, that's the daily here. So let me compress this a little bit. Now, to a large degree, this is a function of, you know, where are we in the macro count? Well, you can give me that. So, but what we can see here from this pivot, this is the COVID low, of course, and then the Fed craziness, and money is free for everyone, right? Now there's the impulse. Here's the correction. Well, just standard ops, you might anticipate a 50, right? Just as a starting point of anticipation. If we're going to get a 50 here, well, there's the 50. 35. Now, golden zone down here is 31, 32. Well, of course, you'd be looking for, you know, these kind of areas as potentially this as well. Oh, well, no, I'm not in log scale, actually. So let's pull this up here and see, get our value area, see if that's any help to us. So are you going to give me that? Oh, shit, maybe it won't. Well, I think it's because is it not going to give it to me? Yep, no volume data. Okay, because SPX, right? Okay. This is the index. All right, so thus, right, so I can't get volume data there, so let me get rid of that here. I'm so used to working with the futures. Okay, so, oh shit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? All of the ingredients are there. So if this is WXY, well, the algo target is down here at 30, let's call it 33.5. Assuming that, right, the assumption here, reasonable assumption to make, an algo is participating here. 1, 2 coming down here for this, so we line that up with the 50 from the COVID low. All right, so we get note here where the target is between the 50 and the golden zone for a candidate for the C. Now, we don't have to go that low. You can clearly see that this whole area here, well, this was a, if we could get volume profile on this, and we'll look at it in a second. If we can get this area here, even if you pull it over, is going to be an area we might anticipate if it's coming that low where we'd see a reaction. Now that's bringing the market down. So we're just in the 1, 2 waiting for 3, right? So a lot to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coming into that zone. Very reasonable count, very reasonable. And he's using that historical context of what Bitcoin often does, or pardon me, what the S&P 500 will do. This is a monthly chart when we see these kind of complex corrections. Afterwards, right? Good for bulls. All right, let me give you an alternate just to consider, right, as a different way to look at this. Again, not saying one's right, one's wrong, just a different way to look at it. I keep this over on Motive Wave as well. So just a little more detail as to what are we calling this low here? Well, you know, I mean, I may not do a full count here. I'm coming up on 2 hours here, but so my interpretation here is that this is all corrective. So it was an A expanded B because this is a waterfall 5. So whatever has happened down here, okay, we can call it a 1. It could be the macro top, could be. Well, that would imply much deeper corrections. I don't think we have to go there yet. So right now, I'm just going to call it an impulse, right? I got to label it something. So I'm going to label it a 1, right? I don't think we've got although we're getting some very bearish commentary from some pretty well-established hedge fund traders that we could go sideways for an extended period of time here, which is certainly possible. But if we're gonna do this, so I'm doing it via WXY as well. I'm just getting there a little bit differently. So as he had it 3, 3, 3 here, there is a diag here, so we can work a leading diag into it. And maybe I should. I guess you can see here. Let me open it up a little bit more. Okay, there we go. That's a little bit better. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 2 and the 4, right, are not particularly good, but you've got a clean leading diag there. Again, open to interpretation. So I'd have 5, 3, 5. And additionally here, the 2 and the 4 are almost identical in both of those moves, right? It's a small 2 relative to the depth of the 4. So that interpretation would be A, B, C via zigzag into this pivot down here before we started the little, what do we call it, a bear market rally. This is just noting the range of the B wave here. Let's see, I can't remember if it'll give me the B wave. No, well, it's only the 2 and the 4. So, but it's marking the low of the B wave here. So A, B, C gives me a W. Now, when you have an impulse, one of the nice things about MotiveWave, I wish TradeDevils did that. I can just highlight it and say, highlight the 4 for me. You know, show me the wave 4, show me the wave 2, which I do because often these are areas of support or resistance. So you can see while we struggled here, and then we came back to test from below the range of the 3, 4, and could a target down here. Well, this would be interesting. You see it approach down here. Potentially, we'd have another support area. So per this interpretation, we end up approximately the same spot. Let me get these up here because I'm semi-log here. 33.32. So whether you're interpreting it this way as he has it here, we're ending up in about the exact same spot. Or whether you're, oh shit, get you back. Oh, motive. Where you go? We're ending up in about the same location, 3,200. My thought is here, if this is an ABC into a W, and this is our X here. Oh, and I think this is in the futures here. Let's go. This is I want X versus W. There we go. All right, so we get a perfect golden zone here. So you see it's just past the 618. So now the difference is we were looking at the SPX. Here I'm looking at the futures continuous contract. So the front month is in the lead. So if I back these off here, bring this down, you see we get a perfect 618 here, which is the most probable. Right? So one of the nice things about MotiveWave, it'll always highlight the most probable location for one of these pivots per the Elliott count. So the W is in. If indeed that is the W, and this count sustains, then the most common location for the X is the 618. And boom, we got it. So if this is a W and this is an X, well, right, we're looking for the Y. So how are we going to get down there? Right, we're looking for an ABC. Right, so is this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the A before we go B, C, or is this A, B, and we're working on the C? Well, there's just no way to really nail that down. You can certainly, you've got that candidate here for a 5. Oh, let's see here. I'm going to get too stuck here. Let's go. Let's try a 6 hour here and see how that looks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that the A? Or 1, 2? Well, if we call this 1, 2, we're working on a 3. We'd expect that to go lower. Well, that would imply that we're working on the A, or right, per as the way he's got it counted here. We're just working on the last 5 of the C. Here, I gotta remember where to go. I'm so used to going back to TradingView. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the A. This would be more bearish, or the A's in. Well, if we think about and just say. Correction, right? So the implication here would be A and B are in. Now, just as I've done before, C versus B. This would be 2618. So, that's not what I want. I want. Pardon me. Well, let's leave that there. So we have the C versus the B, right? So just how far down is that going? What I want is the C versus the A. So C versus the A. There we go. So this would be 1618, 2618. I like to see that cluster here. Oh, bring that down a little bit. Right, so here's the 50, here's the 100, right? If we of W, X, Y, if we're going to get 100 here, this would be a candidate here to get 100. So we got a pretty good lineup here of confluence in this range. Let's call it 3,500 to 3,200. If it's going to go A, B, and we're going to end up with the C here, we can bring these over. Same thing. If this were going to be the Y. Right, and then we'd be coming in for the potential for the 2 here. Now that would be coming up shy of the 50. I don't know that I would be counting on that. There's the 38. I'd be looking for the 50. But you see the nice little pocket potential confluence here. If. Now we don't know, right? So if this is AB working on the C, or if that's 1, 2 working on the A. Going to have to wait and see. Either way, the implication is that we've got to, at the very least, we've now tested these lows. If there's more to come, we're just completing something. So the WXY would look like that. Right, A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B. Can we get it done down here at 3,400? I might be overly optimistic, but it remains to be seen. So bottom line here is this a particularly good area to be buying? Well, I'd say not. It's not a particularly good area to be. Well, if I had to choose, I'd be looking for something short term to play off of the double bottom here. Now, does it stay up double bottom? Well, remains to be seen, right? Market, what do we? Oh, market's down 86 today, so it's not looking particularly good. All right, so the implication is here. If we're is it 1-2? Let's see if Motive Wave will even give us an idea here. 1, 2, 3 going in. That's not the greatest looking impulse, but it's a candidate here. We'd have to look for a 4 to come and then more to come down here. My thought is this could very well be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to go lower so we get closer to the 50 or the 618 down here, 32, possibly lower down here towards 3,000, even 2,800. Right? A lot going on in the world that is not friendly to risk right now, so that wouldn't surprise me. Neither one would, right? But ideally, if I could get it down here in this 3,200 range, that would be interesting to me. Play an area to take action. Until then, I think it's too late to sell, too soon to buy, right? So, but always good to keep tracking this. So while I don't come here and conclude that it's time to be looking for a trade. If anything, depending on how far do we go here, if we can identify this as a good third per the wave relationships and the subdivision, then the 4 to the 5 might be a short that would be worth pursuing. I might do that with options, right? Just because there's, again, so much potential for something to kind of blow up overnight, if you'll pardon the pun. I hope that's not... We don't have to look at that and take that literally, but if it's A, B, and we're working on the C, anywhere down here is going to be pretty attractive. Okay, guys, that's everything I got. This is kind of out of order here, but we'll get resorted. Members know we had a little bit of a reshuffle. We'll get things sorted out by next week. We'll be back on regular schedule, and I'll try to do it live again on Monday. I can't really tell if people prefer it live to record it here. We're kind of doing the same format, but just not doing it live. No, any feedback there is always welcome. Okay, guys, I'll wrap it there, and we'll be back tomorrow to take a look at Bitcoin in more detail. Okay, until then, talk to you soon.